We turn now to a country which used to describe itself as having zero problems with its neighbors. But now we are in 2017, and Turkey finds itself trying to be part of the solutions to all of its neighbors' problems. There are now Turkish troops just outside Mosul in Iraq. There are now Turkish troops in northern Syria. Turkey is now trying to forge a political solution in Syria. So what does Turkey want for the region, and what role does it play at this time? The Foreign Minister, Mevlüt Çavuşoğlu, is going to join us. He's a member of Parliament and a founding member of Turkey's ruling party, the Justice and Development Party. He has been the Minister of Foreign Affairs since November 2015. Please join us, Mevlüt Çavuşoğlu, to enlighten us about Turkey's view on the region.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Peace at home, peace in the world, and zero problem with the neighbors is still the main principal foreign policy of Turkey. And Turkish troops are in Syria to defeat Daesh. And we have two bases in Iraq, and to train the local forces to defeat Daesh in Iraq as well. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity for this clarification. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not living in an easy world today. In America, in Europe, in other parts of the world, we have so many challenges that our societies are really worried. But in our region, I think we all agree, is the most difficult one. And today, the Middle East faces a multitude of security challenges. These include civil wars, terrorism, sectarianism, and violent extremism. Palestine-Israel problem is one of them. And the best solution is the two-state solution, we believe. And two-state solution is so important to end the 50 years occupation of the Palestinian territories, which is a major problem for peace and security of the whole region, not only in Israel and Palestine. So we should focus on the two-state solution, and unfortunately each and every new Israeli settlement diminishes the hope for the viable political solution. And the preservation of the status of Jerusalem, and particularly the Haram al-Sharif, is important for the entire Islamic world. And Israel should recognize the relevance of the Arab Peace Initiative and step into a new of harmony with its neighbors. It's good that now we are normalizing our relations with Israel, and I'm sure Turkey will have the possibility now to contribute more to the Middle East peace process. And we have been following altogether the conflicts in Syria. What we have to do now in Syria. First, we need to consolidate the ceasefire. Together with Russia, and sometimes with the support of Iran, we made a lot of achievements. We evacuated 45,000 people from Aleppo, and we started the political process. And Astana talks was important as a confidence-building measure, but now we need to resume the Geneva talks, which is the main basis for the political solution and the political transition, and which is the best solution for the country. And this political solution is also essential for an more effective fight against Daesh and the other terrorist organizations, which is another problem in Syria. We need to defeat the terrorist organizations in Syria altogether. So Geneva Communique and the UN Security Council Resolution 2254 are the basis for the talks and the solution in Syria. So how are we going to defeat Daesh in Syria and Iraq? This is the main question. I think with better strategy and the right groups, and we can easily defeat this terrorist organization. And we need to kill the ideology of this terrorist organization together, that they have nothing to do with Islam. Islam means peace. So the Euphrates Shield operation, that we have been conducting together with the right groups, the local groups, is a good example how to defeat Daesh in Syria. But we need to defeat Daesh in Iraq as well. We need to support the Iraqi government in their fight. And it's also very critical. And we do support Iraq in its campaign against Daesh. And that is why we have the 2 pages. And upon the invitation of the authorities, by the way, at the beginning. So defeating Daesh with the right groups, again, is important in Iraq. But Iraqi authorities also should consider the concerns of the local people, particularly the isolated one during the Maliki administration. And if we cannot, unless we regain the confidence of these discriminated people, the terrorists will find a fertile ground in Iraq. Therefore, we should pay more attention. For instance, PKK's presence in Iraq is an example. PKK is a direct security threat for Turkey, Iraq, and Kurdish regional government. And the fight against Daesh shouldn't be legitimizing the factor for PKK or its affiliates in Syria. In Syria, does YPG fighting Daesh for the unity of Syria? No, contrary. They are fighting Daesh to gain more territory and also for their own agenda to create an independent state or a canton. And we cannot tolerate any terrorist canton or state in the northern part of Syria, Iraq. Ladies and gentlemen, the situation in Yemen is also a source of concern for us. Unfortunately, the UN-mediated peace talks have not yielded the desired outcome, but we are still hopeful, and GCC Council initiative, Cooperation Council initiative, outcomes of the National Dialogue Conference and the UN Security Council Resolution 2216 could be the good basis for a solution, peaceful solution in Yemen as well. And finally, Libya. You know, we made mistakes in Iraq while US is leaving Iraq, and we also made mistakes in Libya twice. First, we went there, and until Gaddafi was killed, and immediately he was killed, we left. We left them alone. Then we helped them to sign an agreement, and so around 20, 24 countries were gathering together to convince them, to support them, and immediately after they signed the agreement, second time we left them alone. Now this country is facing a lot of problems, including terror, and some of the neighboring countries are supporting different groups for their own interests, but together we should support the interests of the Libyan people. And of course, we are hopeful now that there's a political document that we all together supported, and the Presidential Council finally has got the financial means so they can provide more electricity. Turkish companies are building energy power stations to supply electricity to Libyan people. And also this budget is important to tackle unemployment, maintain hospitals, and the security. Recently, we reopened our embassy. I will encourage other countries. Italy also has opened its embassy, and Turkish Airlines will start its flights to Tripoli in the future. So let me conclude with a warning against sectarian policies and discrimination in the Middle East. This will only worsen current crisis. For sustainable solution, the region needs inclusive perspectives, greater sense of regional ownership, this is very important, and cooperation and solidarity. Thank you.
Let me begin by picking up on your very last point, warning against sectarian perspectives. Much of the discussion this morning has been about one of the main fault lines in the region, which I think many would argue is political rather than sectarian, but it falls between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Given the midst, if we are to judge on the basis of these morning sessions, the midst of these rising tensions, where would Turkey stand? What would you want to do to resolve this tension? and to avoid this kind of sectarian tension you've just warned against?
Turkey is very much against any kind of division, religious division and sectarianism. And President Erdogan made it very clear during the Islamic Summit. Now we are presiding the summit presidency of the OSCE. He made it very clear. He said, I quote, "I am not a Sunni, I am not a Shia, I am a Muslim. My religion is not Shia, my religion is not Sunni, my religion is Islam." That is how we see, and the sectarianism and Iran's sectarian policy is unfortunately undermining the stability in many regional countries, in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in other Gulf countries. And Iran is trying to make Syria and Iraq a Shia, two Shia states, which is also very dangerous. And we need to encourage Iran to stop this kind of ambitions for the stability and security.
Let's focus on what I think is, for you, one of your major concerns in the region right now. In fact, you've described it as your first disagreement with Washington, and that is U.S. support in the war in Syria for the Syrian Kurdish forces, PYD-YPG. The United States regards them as an important fighting force on the ground. They're now encircling Raqqa. Can a compromise be found in order to defeat the common objective of defeating so-called Islamic State Daesh?
For an effective fight against terrorism, to defeat terrorist organizations, first of all, we need to avoid double standard. In Europe today, some of the political parties or members of the political parties in the national parliaments and the European Parliament, even in the Council of Europe, Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, they are trying to take out some of the terrorist organizations from the list, like PKK, just because they share the same ideology. How can I support Daesh, for instance, just because they misuse Islam? First. Secondly, cooperating with a terrorist organization in our fight against another terrorist organization is very dangerous. And it is wrong. It is a mistake. That is what, that is the mistake that the previous administration in the United States made. And they gave weapons to YPG, and PKK got some of the weapons. Daesh got some of the weapons. They exchanged the weapons. They sell weapons to each other, by the way, Daesh and YPG and other terrorist organizations. So, and PKK used those weapons in their terrorist attacks in Turkey. Turkey is an ally of the United States. And why are we, relying on a terrorist organization in our fight? We are 65 countries in the coalition against Daesh, and only Turkey has 600,000 troops. And 65 countries are not strong enough or vigilant enough to defeat one terrorist organization, Daesh, and we rely on another terrorist organization.
So you don't want...
And as I told, is YPG fighting for peace, for unity? No, for their own interests. Why YPG terrorists should risk their lives? Because they want to gain more territory, and they forced everybody, all the others, Sunni Arabs, the Kurds that don't share their values, and it is an ethnic cleansing all these cities that YPG is forcing.
So your position is absolutely clear, but so is the clarity of many of the people involved here, their governments and organizations. The defeat of Daesh is a priority. Who do you then suggest to substitute for their forces? There's been discussion that perhaps there could be more American forces on the ground. Is that what you're telling other players in the international coalition?
In my opening remarks, I underlined that the Euphrates Shield operation is a good example. With the local forces on the ground, and that's why the regional and local ownership is important. We have to plan the post-Daesh era as well. And our special forces gave strong support. So we are about to take back El Bab. After El Bab, we can take back Raqqa together.
With the
Turkish troops and our allies like US, and there are coalition countries. We opened our bases, Incirlik bases, for instance, for them. And some of the allies can put boots on the ground, the special forces, to support the local groups. We shouldn't actually put the Sunni Arabs in Raqqa, it's a predominantly Sunni, to choose between, in such a situation, to choose between Daesh and Shia groups. In this case, probably they will prefer Daesh. Or between Daesh and the YPG. In this case, probably they will also prefer Daesh, because they know what will happen when either YPG or Shia groups come to Raqqa.
So we're going back.
We
we're
have
going
to
back to
understand
the
these sensitivities for the success in our fight against.
We're going back to the very sectarian divisions that we started by saying that the region should try to avoid. Just very briefly, before I take a question from the audience, you say you want the partners. Did you suggest to the United States they should send more special forces on the ground?
Well, 2 days ago, General Danforth was in Ankara to discuss all these technical issues. Yes, we propose United States to put the special forces on the ground to support the local moderate forces.
Okay. We have one question from an MEP talking about peace at home. Who's the person asking that question? Please, stand up and ask your question. And briefly, please.
Minister, you said in introducing your remarks that peace at home was one of the goals of your foreign policy. Could you give us maybe a vivid description of peace as you're administering it in the Kurdish parts of Turkey?
Can you hold on, just ponder. I'll give you a moment to get ponder your answer. Pierre Larouche, you have a question about Turkey as well. I think you know him well.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Minister. Mr. Obama essentially left Syria to Vladimir Putin and to Iran. And that might explain why Turkey all of a sudden came closer to Russia and Putin. What is the strategy, what is your policy, and what is the strategy of President Erdogan vis-à-vis Russia and Putin? I'd be very interested. And the consequences, of course, on NATO.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Pierre. Let me start with your question. First of all, before the incident, we had better relations with Russia, and nobody questioned us why we had good relations with Russia. After the incident, many friends from NATO allies during the NATO ministerial and during the EU ministerial meetings advised me to normalize Russia, and we don't need another tension in our region. But immediately after we normalized the relations with Russia, the same friends started questioning me why we normalized the relations with Russia, the relations with Russia. Well, we had the principal policies before we had this incident on Crimea. We never recognized the illegal annexation of Crimea, for instance. And we had different positions in Syria on Assad, and we still have different positions. But we have also international Syrian support groups. Russia is included. So many meetings, so many decisions, and Russia made some deals. We supported even before we saw the language of the agreement, and none of them was implemented. We also had 4 rounds talked with Iran for a cessation of the hostilities or ceasefire, no implementation. But with Russia, we sat together, we decided we worked together how to evacuate people, and then it encouraged us to extend the ceasefire. It worked. Then we also focus on the political solution. But Astana has never been as an alternative to Geneva. Astana is a good confidence-building measure. Also, it was good to maintain the ceasefire, and it was a good step forward. So, therefore, we need to resume Geneva talks. That is how we see our relations, and Russia is our trade partner. We have so many projects together. It doesn't mean that we agree on everything with Russia. With regards to the southeastern region of Turkey, my dear friend, we don't have any problem with our Kurdish citizens. That's why the big majority of the Kurdish citizens voting for my party, for Erdogan, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Because in 14 years, first we admitted the problem. Then we spent a lot of efforts to solve the problem, and we made a lot of achievements in the region. And we invested a lot. Now they have more rights. and every single right that every single Turkish citizen is enjoying. We built new airports, highways, hospitals, schools, every infrastructure that they need. But who are destroying this all infrastructure, including the hospitals? It is PKK. We have terror problem, and our Kurdish people are suffering more than anybody from PKK terrorist attacks. And 2 days ago, PKK killed 3-year-old boy when he was out to feed a cat. So this is PKK. We have the PKK and terror problem. We don't have Kurdish problem, and our Kurdish citizens are enjoying their rights, and we will continue investing in that region as well. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Minister Çavuşoğlu, I know whatever happens in the region, Turkey is now at the top tables for many of what are the major priorities in the region. All of you will have read that the battle for West Mosul, the last of the territory controlled by so-called Islamic State, has begun this morning. And we know that Turkey is going to be involved on the Iraqi side and on the Syrian side. Let's just get a sense from this audience about 2017. Is this going to be the year you believe that the territorial control of so-called Islamic State in Iraq and Syria will end? How many of you are optimistic that campaign will succeed this year? Oh. How many of you think when we meet here at the Munich Security Forum next year, there'll still be Daesh and maybe not parts of Mosul, but Raqqa and other areas in Syria? Sir, your Turkish troops may have some more work to do.
Yeah, we need to work harder, and actually, this is the sign that the coalitions against Daesh didn't have right strategies so far.
Well, very good. There's ammunition for you, sir. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Very, very good to speak with you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.